Hi. So I was just sitting here, like I normally do, and I had a different understanding of the prodigal son than I've ever known before. And I was like, wow, that is like so interesting that let's share it. Okay. So in the prodigal son story, the father has two sons. He has the older son and the younger son, and the younger son is wanting his inheritance, and he's wanting to go live his life. And in Jewish culture, and seriously in human culture, an inheritance is normally not given until after the father or the parents have deceased. So that, that's why they get the inheritance. But in this particular story, the father with the two sons divided the inheritance, and he gave the younger son his inheritance. And his younger son took the money and he left home. He went out into the world and he learned some experiences. So the older son stays on the homestead, uh, works the farm, if you will, stays close, hangs out with his friends, does his normal routine, but he never stopped the younger brother, uh, never really cared. Like he's like, yeah, whatever. Okay, I've still got mine, kind of thing. But what came to me a few moments ago was this. What if the prodigal son story has more to do with God the Father, God the Son, and us? What if the prodigal son was actually Christ? And in a sense, he did ask for his inheritance, and he did take his inheritance, and he came here to earth to give the Father what he needed, which was reconciliation with us. Okay, so follow with me on this one, okay? So the younger son gets his inheritance, which is Christ, and he comes here to earth. Okay? So his inheritance was to be in human form, to come to earth, walk as a human, and be with the unclean people, because at that point in time, humans were not reconciled to God. Um, Not the way that Christ reconciled us, okay? So go with me for a moment, if you will. Then the older son stayed and could care less, okay? So Christ comes here, he does what he does, and he returns to the Father. When he returns to the Father runs to meet him, puts a ring on his hand, on his finger, a robe on him, over him, and puts new sandals or shoes on his feet. Now, is that not the picture of Christ returning to the Father? He gets his authority back. He gets his robe back, his spiritual garb back, and he gets new shoes, meaning he's returned to the Father. And it just kind of came to me like, what if this could be another view of the prodigal son? Because the father ran out to meet the son and covered him. And in Jewish culture, because in the story, not with what I received about this new understanding, but in Jewish culture, if a Jew or purebred Israelite went out and was around the pigs or the swine or the Gentiles, the unclean. He was considered to be unclean himself and therefore worthy of death and not acceptance back in. But the Father accepted him back in and covered him and protected him and welcomed him back in. And then he killed the fat calf and he threw a celebration because the son had returned home. And I'm just like, what if that was a picture of heaven when Christ returns up there? You know, he returned to the Father. He took back his rightful position in heaven after he completed what he did here. We always get the negative connotation that in the prodigal son story parable, that the prodigal son is selfish and just wants the money and wants to go live life and doesn't care about the father. And then we're told about the older son who never left dad, always worked. But if you really look deeper, he never really cared. He didn't care about his dad. He didn't care about his brother. He only cared about himself and what he was getting. So the character was completely different, but the reaction of the father and the response of the father to the younger son and then to the older son were completely different. So in this story or in this understanding is the older son who really didn't care that the younger son returned home, could really care less, and they got mad at God or the father for giving the celebration because he felt like he deserved it more. What if that is a picture of us humans? That we really just don't care. We don't care about our brothers and sisters. We don't care about our own family members. We don't care about what pleases God or displeases God. We're only in it for ourselves. We're only in it for what we can get from Him. We can, work the work, do the work, and they get to sit in the house and hang out with our friends and fellowship and, socialize. But we really don't care. We don't care about the relationship with the Father. To where the younger son, i.e., in this analogy, Christ really did care. He went out there, he did what he needed to do, he returned to the Father, and he cared about what mattered to the Father. And this was just something that came to me. Like, we look at this, if we stop looking at this from a carnal mindset and really start to look at things through the spiritual mindset, through the eyes of the Spirit, then we're going to understand things deeper and differently than the way we did before. And I know that there's a lot in the story of the parable of the prodigal son. Like, he spent all of his money. But what if the money in this parable wasn't earthly money, but what if it was faith? Because the life of Christ, people wanted to hang around him because he fed them. They wanted to hang around him because he healed them. He gave them things that they needed and that they wanted. But when it was time for him to fulfill his destiny and his passion, which was to voluntarily be taken by the Roman soldiers and Judas and the high priest, Matthias, then where was everybody? Everybody left him. They could care less what happened to him because it wasn't them. They got their fill, they got what they wanted, and they ran. They didn't fight for him. They didn't defend him. They left him on his own. Just like in the prodigal son, everyone left him. He was the one hungry. He was the one alone in the garden praying because the disciples were too tired. So it I can see Christ in this. I can really see Christ in the prodigal son story. He returned to the Father. He received his ring of authority. He received his robe of righteousness, and he received his sandals of peace. And us, supposedly, the other sibling could really care less. I mean, if you really think about it, humans are selfish. We really don't care about anybody but ourselves. Do we really care about what matters to the Father? Do we really care about the kingdom of the Father? Are we in close relationship and fellowship with the Father? Because we bicker about things, like, well, why did that person get elevated? Or why did that person get that title, which really isn't a title, but a responsibility? Or why did that person get to speak and I didn't get to? Or why this and why that? I mean, think about it, because that's the character of the older brother in the parable of the prodigal son. I mean, even though we're not older than Christ, we still, if we really think about it, we only care about what we want. To where we should really be caring about the heart of the Father and what He wants for us, His love. Because the Father extended grace to the older son in the in the parable. He extended grace and begged him to come in and to celebrate the return of his son. And he wouldn't do it because he was bitter and angry and jealous. So it's just something I wanted to share. And just a revelation maybe that I got or was given to me. And I want to share. Just really think about that. Really think about how important is the heart of the Father to you. Because the first commandment is to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy strength, with all thy soul. So to me, that is, we're supposed to care about what matters to the Father. And then, love thy neighbor as thyself. We didn't see that in the prodigal son, in the parable of the prodigal son. We didn't see that the brother cared about the younger brother. We only saw that he only cared about himself. So it was just something I wanted to share. Let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.